Hello, 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 everybody. Hope everybody's having a wonderful evening. It's Sunday night here, and I'm just still thinking about the fights and was sitting thinking somewhat about Daniel Cormier and what he should do from here. And looking back at the whole thing that went down with Daniel over the last year or so, I really feel that Daniel DC Cormier has gotten played by the UFC time and time again. I feel like the dude's been a pawn for Dana White, and if I was him, I'd just go ahead and retire. It's time just to hang it up, but really he didn't get done well by the organization. For a guy that's a constant team player and has always taken the fights or done the things that Dana wanted to do, he was put in those situations with John Jones and had to take other fighters at the last minute, and he got screwed out of that one, had to fight Anderson Silva and make less money in a 3-round fight. He's just never really been done well by Dana in the UFC. Last night was probably his last fight, and Daniel made $750,000, which, I mean, I guess that's good money considering, but not good money considering the numbers I'm sure that core did. And not considering it's probably your last fight, and that he did the UFC a solid by fighting Derek Lewis and putting off back surgery he's supposed to have to make that fight because their main event fell through. You know, he really got played. They set that promo up for Brock and DC, and anyway, Brock got back in the testing pool. We all saw the pictures of him shrinking down and getting fat, not looking well. And I'm pretty sure at some point there, we know that Brock, he got a deal with WWE, and he decided he wasn't coming back. Yet, what was Dana White saying? Dana White was still telling, and Cormier was still saying, yeah, that fight's happening, that fight's on. And Dana was like, well, Brock, yeah, he's going to let me know when he's ready to fight. He's going to let me know when he's ready to fight. But he kept putting it on like Brock was still coming back. He was just waiting on Brock. Brock was in the testing pool, and Brock was going to come back and fight. And that one with DC. But really, it seems to me like he was just leading DC on. That allowed him to make that Derek Lewis fight for them. And when Lesnar, DC really didn't want to fight past 40. He was told that he would get that Brock Lesnar match before March. And when it didn't happen, when it got pushed back past March, and then he finally got told that the fight wasn't going to happen. When Brock Lesnar retired, it don't seem like Dana told him. He found out when Brock retired. That's when he decided to take the Stipe fight because he had already said that he was going to take another fight. They would take one more. Really, I think Dana played a big time. He pretty much said, well, I'm going to push this thing back, and I'm going to get a couple more fights out of DC. Even though, because you heard, whenever DC said he was wanting to retire at 40, Dana was saying he's got 3 fights left on him. He's got this many fights left on him. Man, he's getting played like a fiddle. He was just a pawn for Dana. Dana wanted to use him to make a few more dollars for the UFC. He didn't care nothing about his health, care nothing about where the guy was at. And he pretty much just used the guy, despite the fact the guy's been a stand-up guy and been a company guy. He set him up for failure. Stipe, first of all, that was no smart fight for DC to even take. Stipe's a killer, first of all. Daniel's got balls, so more props to him for taking that fight. But the thing is, why even take that fight? Where he was at, if he would have just retired, his legacy would have been intact, and he would have been a Hall of Famer. Now his legacy is tarnished because Stipe put it on him. And Daniel really shouldn't have took that fight. He had a bad camp. He had just come off back surgery. The guy's 40 years old. He put on all that weight. There's no way within 13 weeks he was going to get back in shape. With Stipe's had a whole year off, and he's been training. He was down in the 230s. The guy looked in the best shape we've seen him. It was just a bad fight for Dana to take, and it wasn't smart. It's pretty stupid. But Dana really played him. He set him up. I think when he made the Miocic fight, he was looking at Jones 2 at heavyweight. But he was thinking, even if DC loses, even if DC does lose, then I can do Miocic versus either Jones or Ngannou. Really, I think he wants to make it versus Jones. So if he can't make Cormier Jones, he can make Stipe Jones and get a big gate there. And also, Stipe gets the rub off of Daniel now, because they were saying, oh, Daniel never lost at heavyweight. He's the greatest ever. Now that Stipe's won, oh, Stipe's, because before Stipe was all those defenses, he still wasn't being called the greatest ever. And then when he got beat by DC, then his stock went down. But now that he's won in that rematch and knocked DC out, everybody's saying Stipe's the best ever. Stipe's the best ever. And to be honest, I don't know who the best at heavyweight ever is. I would actually probably... I should do a video on this, but I'm pushing more at all people going to put me down on this, but maybe in his prime, Junior Dos Santos. He has a 9-fight win streak at heavyweight, and he has the best resume out of anybody at heavyweight. He beat Kane. He beat Stipe. He beat Ben Rothwell. He beat Verdum. He beat, I think I said that already, he beat Kane. He beat pretty much everybody that's out there. Shane Carwin. He beat... a lot of elite level guys, and at the top of his prime, Kane's win streak was 6, and I think Stipe's best win streak is 4. So there's as far as overall wins and losses at heavyweights too, I think the Junior has the most in the heavyweight division, most wins as well as the longest streak. Because really, title fights in heavyweight don't make a big deal. Kane, everybody says Kane was the best over, and his wins were over Junior. So he was a bad matchup for Junior, but. The other fight that Kane won at his other title defense was freaking Bigfoot Silva. Come on, man. Come on. Don't even tell me that Bigfoot Silva was ever amongst the best. But, that's where that's where they were back in those times. And JDS Kane was a bad matchup for him. But there's a lot of guys that Kane got beat by, like Verdum, that JDS beat. It's always on styles make fights. It's any given night, anybody can beat anybody. And some people are just bad matchups for each other, skill for skill. It matches up skill for skill, and he had a bad skill set for for JDS. But getting back to it, DC got played. I think he just needs to go ahead and retire. Dana doesn't even want to make a trilogy. You can tell because it hurts DC's stock. He wants to retain DC for the commentary for right now because DC does a good job at that. But Dana didn't do him no favors. Dana didn't do him any favors at all. He strung him along for that Brock fight. He let him come in this fight knowing that he had a surgery. Knowing that he probably wasn't going to be in his best shape, knowing that he didn't want to fight past 40, and Dana pushed him and pegged him on to do that, despite the fact he really didn't want to do it. But he's a company man. He wants his job. I think some pride got to DC too, all the stuff that Stipe was saying. But Stipe really should have fought somebody else before he fought Daniel. He got knocked out fast. I don't care how many defenses you've had. He got knocked out quick, and he should have had another fight in there. That fight might have never even happened. But, props to Stipe. He fought a good fight last night. He got beat up for 2 rounds, but in the 3rd round, he turned that thing around. So, more power to him. Not a huge Stipe fan. He's okay. He's a good fighter. I'll watch him fight. But, you can't hardly... The guy's unintelligible. You can't hardly understand what he's saying. The dude needs to slow down and enunciate. I speak hood like a mo, but I'm saying for real, that dude is not... You can't understand what he's saying at all. Last night, and he's short, and he doesn't give any information. He just doesn't do much for the heavyweight division. And I don't think Dana really wants him there, to be honest. But for whatever reason, he made the fight. I think... that maybe John Jones versus Stipe would be a good fight, though. Because who do we want to see Stipe fight? Francis again, maybe? We'll see that fight, but it might happen the same way. I don't think Ngannou's ground game has come up that much. And Stipe can take a punch. We learned that, but... Shoot, I don't know. Francis has a chance to knock him out, but I'm just not super excited for it. I'll watch it if it puts down, but I'd be a little more interested to see how Jones does at heavyweight, because who wants to see him fight anybody at 205? Who's really there right now? Corey Anderson? Or, at 205, it's just not very deep. 205 has always been a struggling division, to be honest. Even when Liddell was on top, there wasn't a lot of great guys there. There was a handful, just like there is now. At the very top 3 to 5 are okay. But, Jones is the big fish in a little pond, to be honest, right now. So I'd like to see what he does up at heavyweight just because it's interesting. Does he need to do that? No, but it would say something for his legacy, because his legacy right now is John Jones, PED abuser. And I'm not a fan of John Jones. And maybe that's why I want to see him versus Stipe, because I think Stipe might put it on Jones. We don't know how Jones would carry all that extra weight. and his wrestling went probably with that weight difference probably wouldn't be as significant as it is. But we saw DC out wrestle Stipe last night too, but not in the first fight. So a lot of questions. They need to stir it up at 205, and they need to stir it up at heavyweight, and get some new. They need to get some new guys pushed to the front, man. But I mean, talent makes the UFC, so. Be nice to see some new acquisitions, and be nice to see some younger guys start putting together some win streaks. So anyway, have a good night. God bless. Take care. Peace.